The first speaker is Tom Calma. Tom will be speaking about NintiOne and its involvement in the Australian Feral Camel Management Project. Tom is the chairman of NintiOne and is quite passionate about this project. Tom.
Well, good morning, and thank you all who have travelled a long way. Can I acknowledge Annie Agnes, who's now left, and all of our Anangu partners who have come along to join us today. And can I also acknowledge that we're on Ngunnawal lands and pay respects to their elders past and present, but also to acknowledge their youth, because their youth, like all of our youth, will be our future leaders, the custodians of our stories, our cultures, our histories, our languages. And I think it's incumbent on all of us to be able to create those futures for our youth, and this in part is what this project is all about. Today, in the context of this forum that marks the end of the Australian Feral Camels Management Project, I'm going to talk about NintiOne, its involvement in this groundbreaking research on feral camels and subsequently in the management of the Australian Feral Camel Management Project over the last 4 years. Our involvement in the Australian Feral Camel Management Project, or in short, the AFCMP, illustrates well our commitment to improving the resilience and the sustainability of remote Australian communities, industries and landscapes. The history and the outcomes of the AFCMP, I might just call it the project, demonstrates NintiOne's ability to put knowledge to practice to address critical issues affecting remote Australia. Importantly, it demonstrates NintiOne's expertise in managing large, complex, cross-jurisdictional projects involving a wide range of partners and stakeholders. Earlier this year, we celebrated in Canberra NintiOne's 10th year anniversary. This was the opportunity to present our work, past and present, across many disciplines, including our work on the feral camels. For me, as chair of NintiOne board, it was a time to reflect on past achievements and discuss the future of our organisation. And I'll reinforce today some key points that I made on that day. I announced the transition of NintiOne into a permanent organisation and our commitment to continue building opportunities for people in remote Australia through research, innovation and community development. Remote Australia is important for our nation's economy, identity, culture and ecology. And yet remote Australia continues to face significant challenges in terms of preservation of its environment, planning for climate change impacts and improving people's health, well-being, social and economic outcomes, and especially for our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who live in remote Australia in some of our most remote communities. In short, more work, research, investment and efforts are required to build a sustainable future for remote Australia and its peoples. This is why NintiOne's work through the management of the research activities and partnerships of the CRC for remote economic participation and other activities related to the commercialisation of research for the benefit of Australians living in remote Australia is important and must continue. To achieve positive outcomes and on-the-ground results, NintiOne has established a unique collaborative research platform that works with communities, governments, businesses and people in remote regions of Australia. We work in collaboration, cross-cultural and interdisciplinary ways to address enduring and systemic challenges for all of those living in remote Australia. Our expertise spans Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultural knowledge and its uses, energy and water, enterprise development and entrepreneurialism, function and sustainability of remote settlements, governance in remote regions, IP management, natural resource management and land use, remote education, remote service delivery, remote tourism, partnerships and ways to add value through them, and social and economic systems. Our unique on-the-ground presence across remote Australia allows us to bridge the gap of understanding of issues that affects the environments of remote Australia, the economies and the lives of remote people living in remote Australia. And in this context, we were well positioned to undertake the research to better define the extent of the feral camel problem and develop management solutions. It was a natural progression to then embark on a journey of managing the Australian Feral Camel Management Project. We have learned a lot over the past 4 years, or 8 years, about camels, and today we'll be about sharing our findings, experiences, successes and challenges, and discuss together how the future of feral camel management should look into the future. Initially, in response to a request on NRM groups in remote Australia, the Desert Knowledge CRC, managed by NintiOne, submitted in 2005 a project funding proposal to look at feral camel issues to the Australian Government's Natural Heritage Trust. The project got funded and the research was undertaken by a multidisciplinary group of scientists led by Dr. Glenn Edwards. Now, you'll hear later this morning from Dr. Edwards talking about the important research and how it provided the information base to guide future management. In 2008, the final research report was published and it provided the Australian Government with the evidence to establish a long-term density target for feral camels of under 0.1 animals per square kilometre. The research found that densities of camels were unacceptable in many areas, and there was a high level of concern from many landholders about the growing impacts of feral camels. The research also identified that understanding the views of the key stakeholders was a necessary prerequisite to developing an effective framework for the cross-jurisdictional management of feral camels. In 2009, the Australian Government released the 2009-10 Caring for Our Country business plan, which included, as recommended by our research, the specific feral camel density target of fewer than 0.1 animals per square kilometre as nominated biodiversity refuges, or at nominated biodiversity refuges. NintiOne partnered with other organisations and submitted the initial expression of interest. An allocation of $19 million from the Australian Government was awarded to NintiOne, or the partnership that NintiOne led. The project was funded in 2010 over 4 years, and the partnership led by NintiOne involved 20 organisations. The focus of the project was to reduce density of feral camels in those nominated environmental sites. Now, as you'll hear today, not only did the project achieve its targets despite delayed operations at the beginning of the project, but it also provided important benefits in reducing the impacts of feral camels on cultural sites, pastoral infrastructure and human safety. The project has established a comprehensive environmental monitoring framework to evaluate the benefits of reducing feral camel densities. Also importantly, the commercial use industry is now better placed to make a contribution to feral camel management. The collaborations and contributions of all partners were key to the successful outcomes of the project. And other important elements of the success of the project resided in the way NintiOne, as an independent national organisation and not as a land manager, was able to establish a nationally coordinated approach to the management of feral camels. And this could not have been achieved without our partners. Now, we established a comprehensive governance structure and subcontracted part of the project to government agencies, NGOs and commercial enterprises. And NintiOne staff and steering committee and the steering committee chair brought extensive experience to the NRM, industry development, landholder liaison and, importantly, pest animal management. An important contribution to the project, and again you'll hear more about this later today, was NintiOne's ability to draw on the Aboriginal Community Research Network to survey Aboriginal communities about their views and to create training and employment opportunities for local Aboriginal people in mustering and commercial use of camels. Now, let's not forget that NRM projects can and do have important employment outcomes for Aboriginal communities. Now that we've achieved the federal density targets for the project, the challenge is to build on the work and ensure that coordinated management and monitoring continues. Failure to maintain the current pressure on the camel population will result in a return to very unacceptable levels. The Australian Feral Camel Management Project should be regarded as only the first step in ongoing nationally coordinated feral camel management. In the report provided to you today, you'll find a list of the key recommendations that should be seriously considered by the Australian Government and state and territory governments. We also believe the project offers a useful model for other cross-tenure and cross-jurisdictional environmental management projects. Indeed, future large pest management programs should consider similar processes as developed under the Australian Feral Camels Management Project. The valuable collaboration established through the Camels Project will benefit ongoing large feral herbivore management and other NRM projects. NintiOne will seek to support these collaborations and to explore how they can, or we can, be applied. This whole approach can be applied to a range of landscape level challenges into the future. This is part of our commitment to support development, resilience and equity in remote Australia. Finally, I take this opportunity to thank all of our partners, stakeholders and staff who have actively engaged and participated in this important project. And I urge you to have a close look at the report and, as Jan mentioned, the video and to hear from our partners and to hear from some of our employees who have been on the ground working on this project, because a lot of the stories are fantastic, particularly the additional value-added work that we do with the pastoralists, with the landholders, with the traditional owners in looking after the management of these very important cultural and resource sites. Thank you.